So we have the very first eclipse of eclipse season, along with the spring equinox, kicking off the start of the astrological new year, the spring season and Aries season, and with this lunar eclipse happening in the sign of Libra and being amplified by a very expansive Venus transit. There's definitely a lot for us to look forward to, proceed with caution about, and really get into action with as we step into this new astrological year, eclipse season, and subsequent retrograde season. Hello friends, it's your girl Alina, and in this video we'll be diving into the 5 things that you need to know all about this upcoming full moon and penumbral lunar eclipse happening at 5 degrees in the mutable air sign of Libra on March 24th or 25th, depending on your time zone. We'll dive into the nature of this full moon in this sign, what it means for us, ways to align with this energy, and at the end, as always, I'll offer some custom journal prompts so we can reflect and align together. And if you'd like an outline of this and future astrology readings automatically emailed to your inbox, then be sure to sign up for my astrology newsletter as I send it out about a day or so before each lunation. And like I always mention, each astrological event, including full and new moons and transits, will all impact us differently. So I always suggest for you to find out what house this full moon will fall in your charts so that you can more accurately predict what specific areas of your life will be most activated and influenced at this time. So I'll start by showing you each sign and the house that this moon will land in for you. And I always suggest checking for your rising sign so you can pause to read. And in celebration of the true astrological new year, the spring season starting, I have restocked a limited amount of Auraline astrology planners and wall calendars, and they are on sale. So if that interests you, be sure to click the links down below. Next up, in terms of the 2024 first annual Auraline retreat in Thailand, if you've been curious, I have 2 new developments. First off, there's actually no deadline for payment plans anymore because we've actually teamed up with Affirm, which is a buy now, pay later company that will allow you to make payments monthly towards the retreat versus having to pay for it all at once. Especially for any of y'all who've been curious about these trips. I have received your DMs, talked to y'all, and I just want to give you the update. Oh, and last thing, the spring equinox live stream that I mentioned in my last video was rescheduled to next weekend, and I'll dive into that at the end of this video. Okay, so let's dive into this eclipse. So there's so many things to cover, from the start of the astrological new year to the spring season, eclipse season, and this Libra full moon and lunar eclipse. So let's sort of back up a little bit and set the stage by diving into the spring equinox and what that means for us personally and astrologically. So first up, we have to extend a very special happy birthday and birthday season to all of our Aries friends, as we see that the sun will be entering the sign of Aries on March 19th, marking the spring equinox, the astrological new year, and the start of Aries season. Now, Aries season is a time of renewal, fresh starts, making room for new beginnings, and being in action. And so when we see that the sun enters this cardinal sign of Aries, it's really a potent time for kickstarting things, releasing the old, and really deciding to bloom where we've been planting, making it a great time for initiating any projects, maybe even taking risks, and notably asserting our will, which are all qualities of Aries. A really big point that I want to make for any of you guys who are like me, and I feel like a majority of people who maybe make New Year's resolutions in the dead of winter at the end of December, and maybe you aren't consistent with them, or you fell off, or you've lost a bit of inspiration potentially. I just want to let you know the good news. And that is that the true astrological new year is the spring season, and it's because you see it reflected in nature. Nature itself is regenerating. It's becoming reborn. We see new baby leaves, baby plants, baby animals. And it's really the Gregorian calendar, which is a calendar that was introduced relatively recently in human society hundreds of years ago, that what we consider to be the new year was moved to the end of December. And so if you have had any ideas, or maybe you've been planning things, or maybe you've already been in action, maybe you're looking for a refresh, a restart, anything like that, this astrological new year is such a potent time for that. And considering that we will have a lunar eclipse and full moon, which I will also dive into, now can be such a potent time to strike, to get into action, to ask questions. Being in action doesn't necessarily mean like sprinting. You got to be busy. I feel like because we've had such a huge wave and culture of productivity, there can be this association of being in action with overworking and doing too much. And I really want to make the distinction that it's really all about taking baby steps, little steps, just like we see that as we shift from winter to spring, there are baby leaves. We don't see huge mature leaves at the stroke of midnight for the spring equinox. We don't see that, right? It's about taking steady steps in that direction. And that could be, like I mentioned before, asking questions, getting more information. A lot of the seeds that we might have planted, especially in the previous new moon, or really over the course of this winter season, now we see that symbolically the soil that is our manifestations and the sort of air to the world and how it receives our intentions. If I could represent that as soil, the soil is thawing out. It's not frozen anymore, and it's slowly becoming more and more habitable to the seeds that we plant at this time. And also in traditional Chinese medicine, which I talk about in the Auriline Astrology Planner in your seasonal guide, they see the spring season as a time for detoxification and clearing the winter's stagnant energy. And by the way, I forgot to mention that I actually released a spring equinox meditation. It's really focused on manifestation and aligning with our intentions for the spring season ahead. And by the way, I kind of mentioned this before, but if information around aligning with the seasons and the cosmos resonates with you, and you'd like to learn more about things like seasonal foods, spring wellness practices from around the world, spring spells, and more, then be sure to check out the 2024 Auriline Astrology Planner that I recently restocked. It's a limited number of planners, but if you've been waiting on that, this is your reminder. This is the announcement. Okay, so now that we've set the stage with this equinox that we know it is happening about 5 to 6 days before the Libra eclipse, with this context in mind, let's dive into the Libra eclipse. So let's first start by talking about the nature of a full moon and then what it looks like for there to be an eclipse at the same time. So as many of you guys already know, full moons mark the midway point in a lunar cycle, where we see that at the new moon, it was at complete darkness, reflecting none of the sun's light, and then it started waxing. So we see the waxing moon going all the way to its energetic and light peak at the full moon, where it's reflecting its fullest capacity of the sun's light onto it. And just as we see that this energy and sort of momentum has built in light on the full moon, so too can our energy and momentum build when it comes to any sort of intentions that we might have set at the new moon or intentions in general that we have. And just like in life in a lot of ways where we feel like we're in a midway point or we're at a peak in something in our lives, we can tend to kind of pause to reflect on how far we've come. And this is a part of the reason why full moons are seen as, or I like to call them, cosmic spotlights, because they can tend to very clearly illuminate things in our lives that are working and aren't working midway through our journey or at any point in our journey. And this is why you see many people doing full moon rituals where they take time to get present. They might maybe meditate and journal, and they really reflect on anything that they might feel called to or that comes up for them that they might be ready to let go of. And this is because after the full moon, we will see that the light will start to wane. We'll see the waning moon down to the low point at the new moon, where the light is completely gone. It's completely faded away. And just like we see the light fades away, so too can the energy around anything that we're looking to let go of also fade in our lives if we set that intention around this time. Now, with that understanding, when we see a lunar eclipse, which only ever happens during a full moon, in astrology, they're seen as amplified versions of full moons. And this is a part of the reason why eclipse season in general is seen as a bit more chaotic. It's because a lot of astrological events in general tend to be a lot more intense around this time because eclipses are amplified versions of them. We tend to feel them more acutely and strongly at this time. Another aspect of all full moons is that they always occur when there's an opposition between the sun and the moon. And so there's always this sort of monthly theme and this monthly opportunity cosmically that is presented to us for us to reflect on how we balance things. Because when we have opposition aspects, one of the biggest themes around them is asking us to strike a balance between the varying energies that the two astral bodies involve impact in our lives. So for this eclipse and this full moon, we see that the moon will be in the sign of Libra in opposition to the sun in the sign of Aries. And so with all of this context about full moons and eclipses and them amplifying the full moon themes in mind, and how we're called to explore how we strike a balance between two different energies and themes in our lives, and potentially reflect on how far we've come and what we might want to let go of that might be hindering our journey midway through the cycle, when we see that this will be a Libra full moon, it really illuminates the specific themes that will be showing up for everybody globally at this time. And that's because we're asked to strike this balance between being independent, advocating for oneself, really looking out for ourselves, really kickstarting things, taking initiative. That being the Aries cardinal energy that we see, with the sun being in Aries, and striking a balance with the moon's Libra energy of being in consideration of our relationships, being in consideration of being more adaptable. You know, Libra is a mutable air sign, so being malleable, adaptable, and considerate of others, and also having a deeper level of empathy for others. And so with this full moon and eclipse being in the sign of Aries, we're being invited to explore how we go for what we want and advocate for ourselves and honor our inner callings, while also being considerate of our relationships and leaning into things like collaboration, asking for help, and having empathy. So to kind of illustrate this, like giving you a few examples of how this can show up, on one side of the coin, this could be a great opportunity for anyone who might notice that they might be a bit too codependent in their relationships, or these relationships might be slowing the growth or actions that we know deep down that we personally need outside of certain relationship dynamics. And on the other side of the coin, we might notice a bit of hyper-independence and a sort of under-reliance on others. Either way, during this full moon, one of the biggest themes that we're being presented with is exploring that. And, you know, I'll talk about this. I have a really good journal prompt talking about this as well. But even, you know, on the other side of the coin of like hyper independence, exploring like, have you maybe gotten distracted or over focused on somebody else's needs, other people's needs, to the point that there's things that, you know, light you up on fire, inspire you, would help in your personal growth, but they're different from theirs. And because they're different, we've kind of ignored them or forgotten about them a little bit. This eclipse can be such a potent time for reflecting on those things and seeing that, again, we will have the spring equinox happening almost a week before this lunation, really bringing in this foundational underlying solar theme around being in action, really leaning into that cardinal sign. By the way, I'm going on a lot of different things for this video, but I know that y'all are interested in this. But for any of y'all who don't already know, all cardinal signs, the reason why they are cardinal signs, it is because they're the first zodiac sign at the beginning of new seasons here on Earth. So for example, Aries season also marks the beginning of spring season. Cancer season also marks the beginning of summer season. Scorpio season also marks the beginning of the fall season, so on and so forth. And when you understand that context, that these are the signs that kickstart these new seasons, cardinal signs in general are seen to be the type of signs to be the go-getters. They're not as afraid of advocating for themselves, being really grounded in who they are, and advocating for others. And that manifests in different ways. Like, for example, Cancer, they're a lot more likely to advocate for their personal time, their self-care, setting boundaries with their home. You know, they're literally represented by the crab or the lobster because of those stronger boundaries, that larger capacity to set those things. And so when we look at this Libra eclipse happening during Aries season, and it's all about relationships and a lot of these things, there's a lot of themes around relationships and also our own boundaries and really advocating for ourselves or others. Okay, so balancing that Aries energy of advocating for ourselves or others, being that Libra energy, that relationship focused energy. And if you wanted another confirmation that this eclipse will be all about love, relationships, and exploring those dynamics, really expanding our awareness around them, then Venus sextiling Jupiter at the time of this eclipse is definitely your sign. And this lucky transit will be very influential considering that it involves Venus, the planet of love and relationships. That's also the ruling planet of Libra, making it the depositor of this eclipse. And depositor basically means that whatever state that Venus will be in at the time of this eclipse will really set the tone for this lunation. And considering it that it's already in the very complementary sextile with Jupiter, the planet of luck and expansion, it definitely indicates that this eclipse weekend and the week following it will definitely be a potent time for starting any new friendships or relationships, socializing and celebrating. And that's fostering new or existing relationships. Now, on a more personal level, this can also be a potent time for releasing anything that you might feel has held you back in terms of relationships and celebrating how far you've come in your current relationships, whether they be friendships, loved ones, family, chosen family, anything like that. Overall, I really feel like this time around the 24th, 25th, when we have this eclipse, and it being in Libra, there will be an air of luck to it. There will be an air of expansion to it where we might learn new things about ourselves or others that can really expand our awareness. And especially if we choose to focus on these things, if we choose to pour into ourselves in alignment with these astrological themes, they can definitely pop up even stronger than expected. And by the way, if this video has resonated with you and you are enjoying it, then don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like, because it helps to tell the YouTube algorithm, the powers that be, that you enjoy content like this, which is the #1 way to support my work. All right, let's go ahead and dive into these writing prompts. So what I will do is I will read out the prompts to you. You'll also see them in the video description. And when I'm done, we'll come back. What unique needs do you have that are different from your closest loved ones? How are you meeting those unique needs? When you think of the safest and most supportive relationships that you've ever experienced, who first comes to mind? And in what ways can you continue to foster that and future relationships like it? And finally, is there anything that you're ready to release during this full moon? All right, y'all, I hope that you enjoyed those writing prompts. I'm going to go ahead and answer one of the journal prompts to kind of spark conversation and catch you up on my life a bit. So when I think of when I have felt the safest and most supported in a relationship, I first think of my husband, Chris. He's awesome. I love him. And I also think about a newer friendship that I have. And both of them have this specific characteristic that I want to share with you guys. And that specifically has been when they have brought up to me, like, hey, I kind of noticed you acted this way, or it seemed like you maybe felt this way. Is everything okay? Or, hey, I might have acted a certain way, and I don't know if you perceived it this way, but I just want to let you know this is where I'm coming from. So basically seeking context, asking clarifying questions, and also giving context. And I think that for me, it has deepened our relationships, made me feel more safe, and also more supported, because they were basically these invitations to co-create more of a feeling of safety and mutual understanding in the relationship. I just want to share that with you because maybe that sparks something in you of like, ooh, like, I love that idea, asking clarifying questions and encouraging and supporting people when they ask me clarifying questions or offer me context. I don't know, I'm going on a whole thing, but comment below if that resonates with you. If you made it this far in the video, I would love if you commented 3 flower emojis. They can be any flower, or comment. I'd love to hear if anything that I just talked about resonated with you. And oh my gosh, few reminders. Sorry, if you made it this far to hear them, this is awesome. I will be doing an eclipse live stream on the 24th, this upcoming Sunday, where we will be reflecting on the winter season, our lessons, challenges, highlights, setting intentions for the spring season. And a portion of the live stream will be kind of like a preview of the structure of workshops that I will be offering in Thailand for the Oraline retreat. So whether you want to go to the retreat or not, it'll also be a sort of preview about that. I'll be able to talk more about the retreat and answer any questions that you have live if you want to just like ask me in person kind of and get an immediate answer. Also, we're having the spring sale on the few planners that I have left and wall calendars. They're discounted. But with all of that said, I will leave you with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey and not the destination. All right, bye friends.